Okay, so I've apparently got a big comment troll in my comment section on one of these videos. Um, and I'm so done. I hopped in on the comments. I started replying to the comments, and this person just keeps on and on and on and on, and I'm done with taking the time to just type out long responses. So I'm gonna settle this once and for all. And lady, I'm assuming you're a lady at Courtney Haynes. That's who continues to comment all over my crap. Um, Seriously, if you want to keep on doing this, that's up to you. But I'm really not going to keep typing out big long responses to you over and over and over again. So let's just see if I can find exactly where all of this first came in at. Okay, so it looks like she's deleted her first few comments. As you see right here on my screen, it shows where I initially jumped into the conversation, and we can't even find her initial comments on here anymore. So I'm just going to get down to where she starts finally chiming back in and hasn't deleted actual comments. So let's see. At one point, she tried to make a statement earlier, and again, this is one of the comments that she has deleted, stating that George Bush was not a worse president than Donald Trump. Okay, to which I went in and broke down. Yeah, that's absolutely bogus. Donald Trump has done things that people can come at him about all day long. I won't dispute one bit of that. But George Bush was an absolute incompetent fool. I don't think that anyone who's going to be serious in a conversation would dispute that. I've certainly broken it down in a video on my channel. If you want to check that out, go back and watch my video, Just How Bad Was George Bush? Okay. Bush took us into Iraq on completely bogus, claims and false pretenses. We've spent how much money on the war in Iraq, how many innocent people died as a result of the war in Iraq, and that's all on George Bush's hands. So far, Trump has not engaged us into an actual new war. Now, he hasn't done what he's campaigned on, but that's neither here nor there. Until Trump takes us into a new war, you can't say he's done that. Now, in conflicts under Trump's presidency, have civilians died? I haven't seen the actual figures, but I'm willing to believe that they have, because he has not pulled us out of the wars that his predecessors started. So I'm fully willing to accept that. And that is certainly a black eye on the Trump administration. But he hasn't actually started a brand new conflict. He's been hinting at it with Iran, Venezuela, things like that, but it hasn't actually happened. So until it actually happens, you can't make that apples to apples comparison. By that alone, George Bush takes the cake by starting wars on false pretenses that result in the death of civilians, okay? Not only that, but it was under the Bush administration that the Patriot Act got passed, something that infringes upon your Fourth Amendment rights by using your First Amendment right to get those warrants to violate your Fourth Amendment right. And again, not regular warrants, FISA court warrants, okay? That was all done under the George Bush administration. And she says that is like cherry picking. So what do we see right here? No. Your argument shows how informed you are. Make a damned argument. Don't just make insults. There are more than half a dozen things to measure a president on. Cherry picking the worst parts of a presidency is not a sober analysis. I don't think Bush was great, but he was way more competent and able. Trump is lucky to have people covering up his mistakes at every turn. Are you freaking kidding me? George Bush had plenty of people covering him up as well. George Bush was an incompetent fool, but whatever. We've got more things to read, so I'm not going to drill into that one too much. Someone, to me, making this statement, though, cannot even be taken seriously when they're literally going to sit there and tell me that George Bush was far more competent. That alone is a disqualifying statement. But do we not take competency level into account? Do we not take how they divide the country into account? Yes, you can argue that the Trump is far more divided under the Trump administration, but the reason the country is in such a divide are because of bad policy that wrecked the country under George Bush and Barack Obama and Clinton and Daddy Bush and even Reagan in a way. You have Trump because of a accumulation here of bad policy from bad presidents and bad politicians. The people got fed up, and you got Donald Trump because he had a message that resonated with a lot of working class people, and as a result of all those bad, policies that have been screwing blue collar people over on the right and the left, okay, you've got a big divide. It's literally on the brink of a civil war. And Trump may not, in some of his rhetoric, be helping the matter any, but he most certainly did not create it January of 2017. That's absolutely preposterous. Okay? Are we only going to say that deaths are the only measure of how good a president is? No. I like how you completely ignored my whole part that I mentioned in a comment earlier about the Patriot Act literally being done under George Bush. Now, that has nothing to do with deaths, lady, but it has to do with infringing upon your constitutional rights. So you're going to completely ignore that entire point just to go, oh, are we only going to look at deaths? Well, let me tell you something, lady. Deaths of innocent civilians is a certainly big measuring stick on how good was a president when almost, some people say, into the millions of innocent civilians died as a result of that president's policies. That certainly is a big measuring stick on how good a president was or was not. And we're also not taking into consideration the point that I made, about Bush hiding torture along with Democrats helping him hide torture. You just completely ignore the Patriot Act and ignore the torture to focus it on the deaths. Well, unfortunately, lady, yes, deaths do play a big role, but I like how you ignored my other points. Okay, moving on to some more comments. She also thrown in there that, about the whole impeachment thing. And again, I'm not seeing all these comments. I don't know if she's gone in and deleted them now or what. But, literally, she tried to say that impeachment of a president is not like charging someone with a crime. Literally, if you Google the definition of impeachment and high crimes and misdemeanors, you get exactly what I commented. And this is just a simple Google search, and here's what you get. High crimes and misdemeanors is a phrase from Section 4 of Article 2 of the United States Constitution. The President and Vice President and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Okay? So we all go through some back and forth here again. If you want to go to this video and read up on all the comments that were made there, by all means, you're certainly more than welcome to go do that. And she certainly had plenty of them here. And so as I've been trying to find more of these comments to read over them and break them down, I have found that it looks like she has gone through this entire comment section before I could get to my laptop tonight and record all these things to delete every single one of them. So going off memory the best that I can on comments that she had to make earlier to try and make her case, she kept wanting to try and bait me into these long arguments in the comment section on YouTube, okay? Texting to argue, quite frankly, I've done it, okay? But it's very stupid in my book. It's extremely stupid. So that's why I'm turning to a video. Now, some might say, well, it's kind of petty that you're making a video about this. View that however you want. But to me, I'm making a video about this because this shows just how many people are so brainwashed, in my opinion, okay, by what they're being told by the mainstream media. They're hearing from the Democrats. They're hearing from a lot of these so-called progressive YouTubers who keep pushing this whole agenda that explain that the ends justify the means, that Donald Trump should have been impeached on a weak sauce case, okay? And that even though and that's because he's committed other crimes potentially that definitely hold water, but this one doesn't. But because we know he did this, we can charge him with this, which is all based on hearsay and inference. And so that typically gets thrown out in a normal court of law, but whatever the ends justify the means, we'll go with it. I said this before. Now, I do remember these things, and I'm going to cover them. Unfortunately, it looks like you won't be able to find them in my comment section now, and that's really a shame because my entire goal with this was to show the ignorance level that was coming from this comment section, from this Courtney Haynes person, okay? So basically the first thing that came up was that apparently she thinks that I am getting my idea of the judicial system from a, movie, you can't handle the truth. What was that? Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson or something like that. She implied that that's where I get my understanding of the judicial system from. That, and in some cases, inference and circumstantial evidence and hearsay is allowed in court. Well, if you Google, is hearsay allowed in a court of law, you will find the following thing. And the following thing is this. Hearsay, in almost all cases, is not allowed in a court of law. There are certain exceptions. Now, if you do further research into what those certain exceptions are, you then come to find out that those certain exceptions are when the hearsay aligns with the facts of the case. Well, in this case, the hearsay and the inference is that Donald Trump was threatening to withhold aid from Ukraine, okay? They were not going to turn the aid over to Ukraine, okay? And they would not meet with the Ukrainian leader unless the Ukrainian government investigated Joe Biden for whatever reason. Now, the problem with that hearsay and the problem with the inference or circumstantial evidence is the Ukraine aid didn't get held up. The Ukrainian leader has said he was not under the impression that the aid was even possibly being held up. He had no clue of that. I would think if Trump was blackmailing him, he would know that, but he has said himself, yeah, I had no clue this was even a thing until some of your media started reporting on it. Okay, so he has denied it. Okay, and everybody's like, oh, those Trump talking points. No, that's just the facts, people. How are you going to tell me that the Ukrainian leader is lying? You know more about when he's telling the truth than he does. And I'm sure that every one of you have spent a lot of time around him to know when the man is lying, right? Yeah, so we're just going to take your word for it that he didn't tell the truth when he said he didn't even know that aid was possibly being held up. Freaking full of crap, okay? So he has admitted he didn't know it was even being held up, okay? The aid didn't get held up. They met with Donald Trump, and there's no investigation into Joe Biden from Ukraine. Wow. So clearly the inference and the hearsay doesn't line up with the facts, in which case, in a typical court of law, a judge would say, yeah, it's not allowed. I mean, it clearly has what you're accusing through hearsay and inference doesn't line up to the facts that we have seen in this case, and so therefore there's no factual basis to your hearsay or your inference, and so this is not allowed in a court of law. So I'm not the one who has a misconception of the judicial system. That would be you, lady, very clearly, okay? That being said, she then went on to later try and argue me on the fact that you don't have to do something criminal to be impeached. And that lawyers say that you don't have to do something criminal to be impeached. Okay, guess what? You don't. I've heard people say that you could literally be impeached for anything. But when you read the fine print of the Constitution, literally the definition I just read off a few moments ago, a simple Google search of impeachment, high crimes, and misdemeanors, you then see that the founders of the country and the framers of the Constitution clearly had in mind that they only want impeachment to be used when the president is guilty of high crimes, misdemeanors, and treason. Okay? In other words, they don't want any old dumb reason being used as a president to be removed from office, because that literally creates the avenue of the opposite party not liking the results of the election, and if they have control of Congress, being able to just unseat a president and undermine democracy. That's literally the reason they use that language. For you to sit there and try to make the case, it doesn't have to be criminal. It can be done for anything, sure. But that's clearly not what the founders had in mind when they came to the impeachment process. They had in mind a situation where a bad man gets into office, there's clear evidence that he is a bad man, and he needs to be removed from office, and all honest people guiding the country in Congress then look at that and say, this man is a serious threat to our country and needs to be removed. Now, everyone's going to hear my comment there and say immediately to that, okay, then you agree, yeah, there's evidence. Why isn't he being removed from office? Because a couple of reasons. First of all, the Ukraine thing. You've got the video of Joe Biden telling the Ukrainian, leader, we won't give you money unless you fire a prosecutor. Okay? Now, everyone's going to well, a bunch of countries tried to pressure for that guy to get fired. Blah, 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 blah. First and foremost, why are we telling another country, ally or not, how to handle their affairs? We need to focus on our country. We shouldn't have been even butting in and telling anybody who they should hire and who they should fire. Okay? We are sitting here literally going through a process right now where we are bitching and complaining about a foreign government trying to interfere in our affairs and our elections, yet your whole argument is, a bunch of other countries. So, again, look up the facts here, people. We've been interfering in elections for a long time. That makes us look very hypocritical to complain about other people trying to do that in the first place. The same way it's hypocritical of us to constantly open military bases up all around the world, and we would not allow it in our country. There's clear hypocrisy there. That's why the rest of the world has started to look upon us through a very bad view. Okay? That's a big chunk of that reason. But nonetheless, your argument here is that, okay, other countries pushed for it. Okay, but what did Joe Biden have in significance to this issue that they didn't? Did they threaten to withhold aid from Ukraine? If they did, show me the article. I'm not saying they didn't, but I haven't seen the article that says they did. Joe Biden did that. And it just so happens that Joe Biden's connection to the guy he wanted fired was this guy was hinting at opening an investigation into a gas company that Joe Biden's son sat on the board of and had no gas experience. This is also the same company that the Mueller probe linked to Paul Manafort and was able to get dirt on Paul Manafort and charge him. So it's very clear that this company had some issues. And Joe Biden goes and snuffs the guy who's possibly going to investigate it in Ukraine out. If this were Donald Trump, people would be irate at the top of their lungs, screaming, oh, there's a conspiracy here. He's trying to use the presidency for personal gain. But because it's Joe Biden, oh, well, the Washington Post investigated and they found there's no clear evidence. Oh, wow. We're going to rely on the Washington Post. The Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos owns Amazon, okay? Does anyone know how much taxes Jeff Bezos pays? Nothing. He's the richest man in the world. He's getting away with paying no federal taxes and income tax, okay? Because he's using all these loopholes to avoid paying his taxes. And why is he able to do that? Because politicians like Joe Biden, like everyone else, have made it a system where he can get by. with not paying his federal taxes. So you really expect a newspaper company owned by a guy with connections to the CIA and is the richest man in the world and not paying any taxes to do an honest investigation of the politicians who are basically the goose laying his golden eggs? That's like honestly expecting the fox to guard the hen house. It's absolutely insane to even believe that they're going to do an honest investigation of people that are the status quo who have been manipulating what's going on in this country for so long. Okay, it's absolutely crazy. Okay, and so again, I can't find all these comments to keep reading through them, but this is a sign of people who clearly are drinking too much of the mainstream media propaganda Kool-Aid here. And it's sad because what they don't realize is there's clear hypocrisy. I made the case multiple times, that there are things you could go after Donald Trump on. I made them in this comment section to this lady, and she just keeps ignoring them and going back to, Russia. Okay, well, if you're talking about Russia and the interference in the elections, in my personal opinion, if a foreign government and the head of that foreign government was funneling money into the campaigns of politicians in this country, that gives the semblance they're trying to buy those politicians off so that they're favorable to them once they take office and do the bidding of said country. Okay? That's the way that comes across to yours truly here. Okay? However, okay, that being said, let's examine this for a moment, okay? You could say that because Donald Trump, and I've said this multiple times, accepted money from the Crown Prince of the UAE, you could go after him on that, okay? You could go after him on that and say he was colluding with the UAE, okay? Because, but wait a minute. Trump accepted money from him. Some Republicans accepted money from him. But who did it start with? See, there's indictments that just come out that say before Trump accepted a dime from the Crown Prince of the UAE, they were funneling money to Hillary Clinton and her, quote, Democratic allies. And so all I simply asked for from this lady was to hold everyone to the same standard. I told her, I said, if you really want this to be done, why are you not calling for the prosecution of Hillary Clinton, the impeachment of her Democratic allies that I assume are in office, and if they're out of office and they accepted money, they should be criminally prosecuted, then the impeachment of Trump and the impeachment of any of the Republican allies who accepted money from the UAE after the election. Because to me, taking money from the head of a foreign country is colluding with them, and it's undermining our democratic process because you're accepting money from the head of a foreign country, which to everyone with some sense says that puts you under their thumb to do their bidding. We've already had the pushback from corporations and the rich and wealthy. We already have that idea that's a grassroots movement. That if you're taking money from them, it's a grassroots kind of movement right now that if you're taking their money, you're under their thumb. So if you're taking money through a foreign government and their head of state, it means you're under their thumb as well, which means they could pretty much do anything they want, and you're going to be very hesitant to do squat about it because they bought your position. They paid you off. It's literally what the mob used to do to get the cops to go hush-hush on what they want to do. That's what's going on right now. So if you want to go after something, go after the things we have clear evidence on. We don't have to infer, so on and so forth. But there's a problem there. And the problem is that does not stop with Donald Trump. That moves over to many Republicans, many Democrats in and out of office, and even running for office right now, potentially. If you really dive in the rabbit hole, I'd be willing to bet you'll find all that. So beware. This doesn't stop with the one guy you despise, and that's their problem. These people only want Donald Trump out of office. They hate Donald Trump that much that they're literally willing to do something. That if this were any other scenario, they're the same people. I would bet an entire year's salary would be out of the top of their lungs screaming injustice. And they'd rightfully be able to make that case. Because what they're doing here is they're not calling for justice. They're calling for vengeance. That's why Tulsi Gabbard protested this. This is clearly a partisan, vengeful move. They used one of the weakest arguments possible to go after this man on. They used one of the weakest ones possible. The ones that the Republicans could dissect the easiest. Instead of going after him on something they could prove. They could definitely prove all that foreign money coming to Donald Trump. But the problem is, Donald Trump's going to prove they're taking it too. And so what you're expecting are the crooks to investigate themselves and impeach themselves? How do you expect that to happen? How do you expect that to happen? Are you kidding me? That's like asking a crooked cop to arrest himself. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Okay? They're not going to go after the things that they could prove because it would show to each and every, whoever they accuse is going to come back and say, well, wait a minute, what about you? Again, there were not just two presidential candidates taking money from a foreign government, which to me spells collusion and election interference. When a foreign government is promoting a presidential campaign in this country and funding them, to me that's election interference and collusion. And so they should both be prosecuted. Oh, but it went to people besides just presidential candidates. And if you don't want to hold everyone accountable, you're not pursuing justice, you're pursuing vengeance, and they are not the same thing. They are just simply not the same thing. And so here's what's so sad. People like this, Courtney Haynes lady here who've been drinking all this Kool-Aid that the mainstream media is pushing, that TYT is pushing, that the Progressive Voice is pushing, all these people bashing Tulsi for calling out the hypocrisy here. They don't even realize they're doing more to help the guy they supposedly hate than Tulsi Gabbard is. They claim that it's me pushing this message that's helping Donald Trump. They claim that it's Tulsi Gabbard voting present that's helping Donald Trump. Meanwhile, they may turn to the argument that we make. They may turn to the argument that Tulsi Gabbard made for why she voted present. Sure, Donald Trump may use those things. But he's also going to take every bit of the hypocrisy coming off of you people who are making this lopsided argument, and he's going to take that and he's going to show it to his base and say, look at this. Look at this. Look at what we have on them doing the exact same things, and yet they want to come after me and me alone. Doesn't that smell, funny to all you voters of mine? Don't all you constituents of mine? Don't you look at this and say, I smell a rat? Looks like they're trying to do some double standard stuff here? Of course. And it's going to rile them up. It's going to make you and the rest of the Democrat Party look like a bunch of two-faced jackasses. It's going to rile his base up. And meanwhile, when you keep diminishing candidates who are trying to push for unity, who are trying to push to hold everyone to the same standard and be accountable, when you're taking people pushing the honest message, not the partisan hacky message that, turns a blind eye to hypocrisy, when you're demeaning them and pushing people, pushing hypocritical messages, okay, what you're going to cause is a lot of the people like myself who aren't going to follow suit to your hypocrisy to say, no, this is ridiculous. And, of course, Bernie will be screwed by the DNC again, and you will get the Joe Biden, the Elizabeth Warren, maybe Pete Buttigieg. You will get some corporate hack to run against Donald Trump. He will look like a martyr, and the droves will turn out for Donald Trump again because they feel like they have to protect the martyr, Donald Trump, who he's been able to make the case is being singled out when other people aren't getting singled out. And all you will help win Donald Trump a second election. And you're going to cry about it. You're going to kick and scream about it. You're going to fuss at the top of your lungs. But here's what every single one of you can do once you do all this bitching, whining, and moaning and Donald Trump gets his second election, because you're all sitting around being a bunch of hypocrites. I want you to take the hand of your choice, reach around, and give yourself a nice big pat on the back, because you have done an excellent job at convincing American people that Donald Trump is the victim of a lopsided investigation that is being done on nothing but vengeance, and that the people trying to accuse him of X, Y, and Z are guilty of a lot of these same things, but they don't want to do anything except investigate Donald Trump. And you're going to make him look like gold to his supporters, rile that base up so they turn out in droves, and many people won't be willing to turn out and vote for the Democrat nominee because they're going to see the hypocrisy here, and they're going to say, you know what, screw this. If they get Trump 2.0, they deserve it. So, again, you need to pat yourself on the back if he wins in 2020, because you have done some of the best work possible to promote the Trump campaign and get that man reelected, and you did it all free of charge.